We're live with the first inaugural video for Dark Sorcery, the YouTube channel, the first inaugural live stream. And we're going to be joined tonight with Waylon of the Black Tower, the Sorcerer Ahrimanahsul. We're going to be also having Alfredo Martinez, the founder of Dark Sorcery. What's up, Alfredo? JB Perry, who's an accomplished sorcerer, and he likes to call himself, I believe, Darth Dilbert on the side occasionally. He likes doing office magic. You guys know him because he does videos in Dark Sorcery pretty frequently. We have Ikela Morningstar, who is a relatively new admin of Dark Sorcery, but she's been a friend of Alfredo's for a while, and she's been working with us to make Dark Sorcery awesome. And, of course, we have myself and Loco, who's going to be joining us as a guest moderator. She's going to be helping out with the comments since we're going to be probably chatting away. So how's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's doing well. How about you?
Doing really good. It's nice to finally see us, and we're all together on this chat for once here.
It's a huge difference from the first time. We were talking about that for a second before we started. That embarrassing October attempt.
Oh, what? What are you talking about?
Everybody makes mistakes, especially me.
You're gonna get a whole mob mad at us now. They're what?
Right?
Hey, try to fix the screen. It has me stuck. So when people are talking, they're not, being pulled up. That needs fixed.
I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
On the YouTube thing or whatever, I'm the one that's staying up on the screen instead of
that's a good point. I don't know why it's doing that. Hold on. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Cameraman. Let's see. Testing. It should be working now. Let's try it. Yeah, now it's
working now.
All right,
so it's picking up a lot of audio from JB, so that's part of it. Okay, so hi everybody, we're back again. So all right, so we were thinking about tonight's topic was going to be the increase of the infernal current that's going on. The increase in the way the infernal forces seem to be increasing in the world in some ways, but especially on social media. Like we see it constantly, people's various like Dark Sorcery is growing, you have Quetting, you have all these people coming up, VK Johannem, all these other people, myself, so many people, you guys were all coming up, and it's getting more and more interesting all the time. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that that's correct, or do you think that it's just because of the way the internet has made things possible? Do you think there's an increase in the dark, the infernal current? Or do you think that this is just, internet? I
agree. I think that more and more people are starting to see through the bullshit society and lies they've been told, whether they are, within their secular lives or their spiritual lives. And I think that there's more of a drive that's going around that's causing people to search more within them. And I think that's a lot of that is leading to an increase in left-hand path, or you could say a relation to the infernal current.
Right. And it seems like it's, like you said, it's also predicated by the internet. Now, JB, you do a lot of stuff with, technology and stuff. What's your feeling on that? Do you think that this is because of something spiritual? Or do you think it's just technology is facilitating it?
I think that I see a trend. If you look at roughly 1970, that was Anton LaVey's time. Then 1995, that's when I'm working in DC. The birth of the internet. Windows 95 comes with Internet Explorer Standard. A lot of satanic websites come up, but they only go to a certain level. And then there's a drought for roughly 25 more years, and then people actually start talking about the next level. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that the internet has helped. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's the global telephone. It's the global newspaper, because you can't trust either side of whatever's on TV. They're all crazy. But I see these 25-year trends. I see 1970, I see 1995, and I see roughly 2020.
Because it does seem to be, obviously, there's a generational influence as well. Like when I was in the 80s and such, in the 90s, you had the whatchamacallit, the satanic panic and all that, where what we did, like, we'd probably be on the news already if we were the only ones doing it, so people would be freaking out about it if it was back then. Nowadays, it's just like, oh, look at the kooky occultists, and people just either walk on by, but a lot of people are also just like, hey, this is very interesting. There's some legitimacy to some of this, pardon me. And it's pretty interesting. So we're seeing a definite shift, I think it's happening more and more all the time. What about you, Ikela?
Yeah, I've noticed that there is a trend going on, but I think it's more about people are getting a little bit more comfortable because there's more of a safety net. And so people don't have to hide out behind what they believe, and a lot of people are coming out about it. And I think the more that people do that, the more people feel comfortable. But also, I think people are starting to wake up to the lies that, we were taught when we were younger. A lot of us were.
Right. And when you see through these lies, each one, it starts getting just easier. Like, sometimes I even feel like I know Waylon and I sometimes we talk about this a little bit, and I think we share similar impressions. Sometimes this dark element that we play with, as true as it is, it's also just because it's like a stylistic thing, because it's not necessarily the darkness that everybody sees. It's not necessarily the edgy goth thing. There's a lot of people who don't express it that way. I mean, look at Alfredo, look at JB, look at Waylon. They're normal people living normal lives, but they happen to work with demons and dark gods and all this other stuff. So the lies, I think, are getting blasted apart a little bit. People are starting to see that not every one of these entities is somehow evil trying to destroy the world. Would you agree with that, Waylon? You think it's also part of why it's getting more prevalent?
To kind of answer that, I'm going to have to go with JB's approach, because I've been watching it from a technological viewpoint as well. That, we started off where it was, covens, groups, stuff like that, meetups, things of that nature that was done in person, all the way up to the point of, small chat rooms and stuff like that. And so it was like a taboo thing, and everybody was secret, and they were part of a secret group and all this, that, and the other, and it kind of added to the mystery, and it gave it a flavor. And then, bounce forward 10, 15, 20 years, and bam, everybody and their cousins on here, doing something with it. I think a lot of it has to do with how conscious we are towards what it is that we're doing, and towards, each other and everybody's different works, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, with that interconnectivity that we have now, I mean, we can do rituals with each other live over the internet, and they work. I mean, you want to talk about a way to spread this stuff. That's pretty impressive. Speaking of spreading things, we've got a few people watching. Let's make sure, when you're watching this, feel free to comment with your questions. We're going to get to them in a little bit. Share this. I don't want to be the guy who's constantly trying to be that guy who's sharing everything. But we're trying to build the channel, guys. Just understand, we're brand new to this, and we're trying to get to make this channel work and build up this group as much as we can, because if we can spread this stuff, it'll be good for obviously us, but also for everybody else. So going back on that now, one of the things that I've noticed in my own practice is the spirits that I work with are very eager to be talked about by the right people. And it's not that so much they're trying to prove themselves, because as I've mentioned before in other chats, I don't personally believe that they're really interested in proving themselves, because they know what would happen if the world became aware that magic, at least in one shot, maybe if it takes a number of years, it'll be fine. But they don't want everything all in one shot for this, the regular world, the mundane world, to believe in magic, because then all of us will be tied to a post somewhere getting burned alive potentially. So, but I have noticed that they do seem to be very interested in getting the right people to, share what they are and how they operate. So, Alfredo, what do you think of that? We're going to go in turn. Alfredo, what do you think of that?
Yes, I think you're right. I think that once you begin doing what you feel deep down you should be doing, especially in a spiritual manner, you'll see, certain doors start to open up in certain areas that you didn't foresee. They're for the most part pretty willing to and open to work with you and open up doors.
Okay. And I mean, like it's like weird, because it's like sometimes the spirits will give you things for this stuff, for your videos, for your content,
Right.
producing it.
Right. Or you'll just find out that, you know, if you need a certain amount of money for something, you just happen to have just exactly that amount for what you need.
Right.
You know,
or you'll
your
get
spiritual
like
work.
inspiration that's like perfectly in time with what's going on in the community. What do you think, JB? Do you think that's a part of it? Do you see that at all in your own practice, or is that more like something you see with other people's practices?
Well, first of all, let's go back a little before 1970. They've been talking to us for a lot longer than even the 1970 number I talked about. I actually got Eric Cohen to go look up a book and read it. He sent me an email like, damn, this book existed? Arthur C. Clarke, the guy that wrote 2001, the classic movie, book done to a movie, et cetera, did another book called Childhood's End.
Yep.
About an alien intelligence that shows up, and when they reveal themselves, they look like the demons that we think of in the biblical sense or whatever, but they work for a higher source, and that's the real driving force.
Right.
So they've been talking to us forever. You just have to say, okay, they talk to us now, they talk to us then, they talk to us then. Yeah, this has been ongoing.
Do you feel that this is, a lot of times what we do kind of overlaps with, like, ancient aliens and all this other stuff? Do you believe that this is directly related to that, or do you think that there is such a thing as that? Do you think that these spirits are in any way representatives of, like, obviously anything that's a spiritual thing could be thought of as alien, but I mean,
first of all, I'm 100% sure that there are other intelligent life forms in the universe. That's a given. The Drake equation, which is the scientific edge of it, certainly says that. But metaphysically, same thing. You just know if there are some entities, they're not all in Chicago or China or South America. They're on some other planet as well, if they have a physical presence.
Right.
And this. So I'm 100% sure they're there, and I'm sure their followers may have come to see how far along we are. And maybe some of these spaceships are just mom and the kids in the minivan who crashed. Like, how do we get out of here?
They crashed in the wrong neighborhood. We're ripping the tires off of their spaceship. Yeah.
What planet are you on? Earth. Get me out of here.
It smells. Yeah. Yeah, going back to that, like, one of the things you mentioned, the Drake equation, one of the interesting things about that is, while the Drake equation does show that there should be a lot more alien life in the universe than we're detecting, because you have also the Fermi paradox, which is why don't we see this life everywhere? And there's a lot of possibilities for why. But one of the things people have to recognize also is that just getting life to start the way we know it is proving to be astronomically unlikely. In other words, just to get a single protein to evolve out of the amino acid soup that would be found at the bottom of the ocean it's on the order of such a high number of unlikeliness that it's actually, I forget if it's more or about the same or a little less than the statistic probability of getting the exact same shuffling of a deck of cards twice in a row. It's so astronomically low. It's many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of times the age of the universe. If you were to do it once every second on every planet in the universe, it's so you can look up videos of how astronomically unlikely it is. So the fact that there's any life at all could be, I'm a firm believer in the most I think there is life in the universe everywhere. I think more than likely it started from maybe during the Big Bang, like panspermia, I think is the most likely one for my vote. But this isn't really about aliens, but I wanted to point that out because it's an interesting thing. Like, what is exactly causing all this? So let's move on to Ikela. What do you think about the original question I asked? Going back to, what was my original question? Who remembers?
Well, I know you were talking. Well, I don't remember how it was worded, but basically for me, in my practice, it was a spiritual calling. Like, I was literally like dragged to it, and it was a really uncomfortable experience for me. And because I have a lot of spiritual gifts that can be very hard to manage at times. And I was talking to Alfredo earlier about it. And so it was like, as much as I wanted to run from it, I finally learned to embrace it. And I feel like Spirit has called me to this, if that makes any sense.
Do you ever get from the spirits, do they ever give you something that you should post online, or like through your workings? Do you ever go, I want to make this like an offering? Does that ever happen for you like that?
all the time. I get messages all the time. In fact, I was telling Alfredo earlier, lately I've been kind of going in and out of either visions or thoughts or voices, or sometimes my facial expressions change. But anyways, I was at work and I work for Nintendo and I'm on the phone and I get a vision and I slip out of it and I almost told the consumer, and I love you. And you know, and it was like I mean I lately I've been doing it a lot lately, like doing stuff like without being self-aware, because I'm picking up on stuff, you know, and I'm able to cover it up quite a bit. Like Alfredo was saying, well, I didn't even know that you were doing that or whatever, but I cover it up so well because I'm so used to it happening a lot. But sometimes like I'll be brushing my hair or I'll do something and I can tell spirit is doing it for me, because I would never do my hair that way. Or I start writing and you'll watch my writing change and I know somebody else is writing, it's not me. Or stuff will come to me. I mean, it's just a trip, you know, and it's not an everyday conversation I don't have, but because we're going to be talking about the stuff that most people don't talk about, I think it's important to bring it up, because I only usually share these things with a rare handful of people, because otherwise most people might say I'm crazy, you know.
Right.
But those are everyday things that I deal with. Yeah, you get inspiration, you might write a song, you might get, you know, a subject for a live stream or just whatever. I mean, I think we all kind of do that, you know.
Yeah, it's very inspiring. Waylon, I don't know. I'm looking forward to your answer, because I have a feeling you're going to answer like me, that the spirits give you topics, they give you things to talk about, and that part of what you do is like an offering to the spirits. Would you agree? What do you think about that? Do you think they guide your online activities like that?
Absolutely. And they also tell me when I'm not supposed to say anything. And there's times where I know stuff and I can't say anything. And that's hard. You know, sometimes I know things and I'm not allowed to say anything. I also feel like they help me guide other people, or give me just inspiration about something I might want to write, all the time. I mean, yeah, I would agree with you 100%.
So what about you, Waylon? Do you think that your work is being guided, you know, to be more out there because of that? Do you feel that at all, or do you think it's?
Oh, I very much know it is. For example, and what I'm about to say may sound a little out there for most, and then again, it may touch base with a lot of people. It's been my understanding for about 20 years now that we are sharing space with other beings that we cannot physically see.
Right.
So, for example, let's say you're sitting back, you're meditating, and you astral travel, you go out of your body, and like, let's say that you're heading straight for the moon, okay? Let's just say. And between your body and your target, you're going to see all kinds of beings. But if you were to physically get in a space shuttle and go there, it's like you're going through them, because they're a whole nother vibrational rate. So I believe that we are surrounded by these things, you know, and that's the answer to is there life in the universe? Yes, there is. It's just in another context than what we understand on a normal basis. And then as far as like being guided, hell yeah. I mean, there's times when I'm sitting there just trying to have a normal fucking conversation with somebody, and all of a sudden anything that I'm entertaining decides it wants to use my mouth to speak through me. And when it does, it changes the octaves and everything. Changes volume, pitch, the whole 9 yards. And I'm sitting there feeling like, holy shit, this motherfucker's gonna think I'm crazier than hell or got MPD or something like that. I've had this shit happen.
Right.
You know, and you know, like Ikela was talking about with the handwriting. Holy shit, you'd swear up and down I'm fucking MPDs, man. I have like so many different handwritings, it's not even funny. But if you'll look at what I wrote and what I'm talking about, you can tell it's a different influence. And whether you think it's just a part of your brain that you're tapping into, or if it's an actual entity or something, that doesn't matter. You know, this is how these things manifest. You know, and do I feel guided? Fuck yeah, I felt guided since day one. You know, I wouldn't be where I'm at if I hadn't listened.
Yeah,
Actually went with it.
You got to pick up on that guidance and work with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things. Like, I mean, with what I've been doing, almost everything that I do is, you know, at the behest of my working with the spirits. It's the source of my content, for crying out loud. But I will, you know, what I like to do is, you know, this is not a thing that's very publicly shared with a lot of people. I mean, people try. You have your people like Quetting who will put out live rituals. You have so many other people who put out live rituals, and it's a really important thing. It's really a good thing to see. But a lot of people don't, or they embellish it a lot, or they'll do a lot of, I don't know, they'll make stuff up, or it's just corny. But I don't think a lot of people, I shouldn't say it because I do see a lot of people putting videos out, but it's not in the mainstream in the sense that there seems to be a certain number of people that are doing this that are getting attention, and then the others aren't. But there's not a lot of live rituals out there. There's not a lot of authentic content. What I like is when I watch somebody's channel and I see something that they've had an interaction with a spirit, and it'll line up with something that I've had. Now, you guys know that I don't do a ton of research. I should probably do some more. But one of the things that happens is you get like really validated when you see that kind of stuff. And, I think that's an important part of the internet experience for the occult as well. This awakening of the infernal current in our society through the internet means that we can compare notes a little better and evolve, our science of magic, mysticism, demonolatry, whatever, to the point where it actually can move it out of the Stone Age, if you will, because a lot of it's still in like a Stone Age, Bronze Age mentality, and we have to move past that a little bit. What do you think, Alfredo? Do you think that this is going to cause magic to become more sophisticated? Do you think that this is going to give people more of a something to work with? Or do you think people are just going to keep going their own way, or somewhere else?
I think it is. I think it is going to advance things spiritually. I mean, just with all these spiritual information that's out there, even if some people don't naturally have the gift to tune into it, they have a pretty good set of tools to get started. And I think that as time goes by, I think we're going to see new systems of magic developed. I think people are going to get even more innovative within the community than as if there was no internet and we were just all at a bookstore or something to that nature. So yes, I do think that it's going to boost and make things a little more creative and more interesting for the community.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I think like myself, and I know some of the people watching the stream and some of the people who are in the stream, one of them, hi, Magicology, we all know him, he's a good guy. There's a lot of people like creating their own systems or modifying old systems to work in the modern era. A lot of people have done that, and that's, I think, part of that evolution that happens online, because we can compare those notes, and really get into the nitty gritty in a better way. What about you, JB? What do you think? I know you're kind of working magic in like a more, what would you call it, a public setting, or how would you put it? Like, you're doing things in a way now where I think that applies. Like, you can really interface with more people and more ideas.
1 second.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm back now. What I think in general, well, I have 2 points. The first one is what I think pulls people into magic and out of magic very quickly, and they leave too soon. It's this desire that magic is a holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're going to do the spell, and gold coin's going to fall in your hand. You're going to do this spell, and you're instantly going to be moved, or look into a fire, and literally a figure's going to stand there, look at you, and juggle baseballs or whatever. And I appreciate that a lot of mages, including Quetting, have gone back and said, listen, it's not going to be that advanced. You're going to see subtleties. Yeah. And the stronger you get, the stronger it's going to be. But don't come into this thinking that you're instantly going to be teleported to a spaceship, be on the holodeck, and dance in a German beer hall, or whatever experience you think you're going to have.
Yeah.
2, systems. I think more systems will come about. I'm actually developing systems myself, because some people just don't want to memorize a lot of stuff. I look at tarot. I love tarot. It's just too much to memorize. So you look at someone like Espen Kane. They do tarot with only the major arcana, and they have their own spreads. I've gone down to a system of 2 dice, 1 black dice, 1 white dice. The black dice is for yes. The white dice is for no. You simply roll them, and
it's almost like Ching. It sounds like Ching, but with a little.
Promotion. You roll the dice. Black dice says 5. White dice says 1. 5 to 1. Yes, that's good. If you get ties, then depending on whether it's double ones or double sixes, you're asking the question wrong. Rephrase the question, and it's working. You know, I started this and said, you know, I don't like complexity of tarot. I don't like all this stuff. I have 5 major computer languages in my mind, 6 major industries in my mind. I don't have room for tarot.
Right? No, I hear you. That's yeah. Wow. It's good you said that. Like there's so much out there. Keep going. I'm just.
So I went by this and went on. Now I did. Yeah, I still do tarot. How do I do it? I've got a Kindle. I've got the Right Way Tarot program on there. I pull it up. The more I draw a card, the more I understand it. But I'm the first person to cheat. Click the little card, see what the suggestion is. Okay, that's good. On and on. And to just finish up, Kindles, tablets, best magical tools ever.
You can scribe
it. You can't go to work with this big book with a skull on the front that says, the Book of Death. The Book of Death. I'm going to destruction. Your boss is like, what's that? Do you not like me or something?
Right? What do I smell?
So, all the stuff coming out on Kindle is wonderful. I'm glad that major authors are putting things on Kindles. And they were putting stuff out on PDF before that. I got that. And there were jobs where I wasn't being tasked as much as I could have been tasked. So I just had my Kindle there, and I would sit there and read. And if the page had a sigil on it, I would quickly get to that page or flip off of it, the page of just text. So if someone come in, they're like, I need you for something, they wouldn't see the sigil of Dracula. I could just peacefully read.
Right. It's. I mean, it really does make it's so much more open, and it invites a golden age of this kind of study. And a couple of things you said are so important: the subtlety of magic, that it's not, it's not Doctor Strange. You're not going to be hurling fireballs, and if you are, I don't know anybody who can do that level stuff. So
if you are, I want to meet you.
Right, let's hang out, right? Not only do I want to meet you, but whatever you want.
I want in on that one.
What's that?
I want in on that.
Right? No, you can come too. We're gonna go to their house.
We'll have a cookout.
We'll let them like the barbecue. I love that when you bring it up, because a lot of people approach me like when they're asking me for whatever information, instructions, spells, whatever. My first impulse is like, do you realize how this works? You're asking for something that's maybe a little too impulsive, or maybe you're expecting things to happen in a way that's a little bit unrealistic. And not that I often have to preface that by saying nothing's impossible. It's all miracles are possible in magic. It's just that you aim for the miracle, but you get happy when you get the lesser manifestation, and you appreciate that. So we'll come back to that kind of thing. Let's talk to Ikela. What do you think about has the internet, has all this stuff made it easier? Obviously, it's made it easier, but what do you think about how it's changed the playing field for magic? Do you think it's made it, has the accessibility helped, or is it hurting things? Because some people are getting confused even.
I think it's amazing because, back in the day when we didn't have access to computers and all that, we had the library. Because when I started, I was 11, and I would go to the library. There was that limited section. I didn't have anyone to talk to. It was like not something you would talk about. And so with the internet, you can, secretively watch YouTube videos, research things. I think that it's really going to help people to really be able to study. And we all have different studying styles. And it's funny, as you guys were talking, I was listening, and we went so far out there that I almost forgot what you were talking about. I was like, wait, what was the question? But yeah, no, it's amazing. I love it.
And I like, when JB brought up the thing with the dice, that's actually an interesting system. I don't know if he plays Dungeons and Dragons or anything like it. I think he'd probably get along good with our D&D table. There's a lot of that that's coming up more and more. But it's definitely, because you can actually take, when you roll those dice and you see the 5 versus the 1, it's not just the 5 is right, it's the 5 is very right instead of like 3 and 4 or something like that. So you can get a strength in your response too. I like that system. I may have to meddle with that. But talking about tarot too, like tarot is like one of the things where my memorization of the cards is like, out of 10, maybe a 3. I go by what it feels like. Waylon and I just did something recently, and we, I had just got this deck of Oracle cards, which are interesting, and I really like them. And when I use them, like I hadn't even read the book yet. I have no idea what the cards are supposed to mean, but the imagery and the titles on the cards, and they instantly connected. He and I instantly connected, and we got a really powerful situation out of it. And it's really interesting that, like I try to point out to people, the cards don't actually do anything so much. I'm not saying you can't empower them if they're not, like Alfredo has a cool video where he shows some ways you can energize your cards, but they tend to be, they're gateways for your own intuition to work through. They're inspirational for your own intuition. And the fact that you do get relevant cards as often as you do, is the spiritual influence. But we'll get into maybe tarot in a little bit. Waylon, what is your feeling, of course, on the expansion of the occult on the internet? How has it affected your work? How much of a blessing and a curse do you think it is, going back to this original question?
Well, originally at the age of 18, it was the reason why I went to a public library in the small town I lived in, and it was really weird because it's in a Bible Belt. Well, what's really funny is I would save up every dollar I had, and I would run off, like if it was black magic, the different Necronomicons, just all kinds of really weird information, stuff I really wanted to know. 10 cents a page, you can just imagine. But I'll tell you what, I went through a lot of money doing that. And the thing about it is, you get enough ran off, even in a small town, they're not going to be worried about what you're running off so much as if they're running out of ink and paper. I'm wondering what it is that you needed, ran off for, who is this kid and why is every week he in here doing this, And then the rest of the time you're sitting in there, like all quiet, like being a PC ninja.
That brings up an interesting point that I bring up all the time is when I got started, I think JB and I are the oldest ones here. I think Waylon's probably next. When I got started, all you had was the occult section of the bookstore to see. You were lucky if you got anything that was reasonable, especially if you're interested in the darker path. Everything was going to be new age stuff. Everything was going to be, all this other thing. So you kind of had to figure it out as you went. And in some ways that makes it stronger. In fact, in every way it makes it stronger. If you know my personal feelings on it, anything that you develop with your own practice is going to be much stronger than what you read in a book. But it's one of these things where like I really find it interesting. And now you have like people's hard drives are full of PDF after PDF after PDF of magic, and I find it interesting because I find the ones that are the most well read don't necessarily have that much of an advantage. But I do think that this proliferation on the internet creates an intuitive encouragement for people because it becomes part of the meme culture, it becomes part of our culture in general. Like if you watch a movie, you can pick out the occult references, even if you don't know anything about the symbols. Like you might not recognize, whatever they have, but you can still pick out principles from pop culture and things. It's become pervasive. Whereas I don't know, I think in the past it was more pagan. So what do you think? Do you think it's become less pagan and more basic, or what?
I don't think it's really that it became more pagan or more basic. Back, let me finish saying what I was trying to say.
Oh, sorry.
That's cool. I think it's awesome that you can now go online and find stuff that you couldn't find before. I mean, just straight up. And as far as pagan and basic, I'm going to be honest with you, even before the internet, it was the same thing. All the internet did was give a platform for everybody to tell everybody else what they were and what they're into, and so forth and so on. Kind of like a podium to speak at, sort of. As far as tarot goes, I use the Thoth Tarot deck. I prefer Oracle cards because they work hella better. I have an Infernal deck that was gifted to me by a brother that I use when I absolutely want real answers. And what's really funny is that, when I was 17 or 18, I ran across the website that had the book and had the cards and everything else. 23, 24 years later, I end up with the book and the cards. And, and it started me wanting to understand, runes and the different realms and worlds and the angles between and so forth and so on. What it does is it just allows us access to more knowledge, to more information that nowhere else have we had that. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, like you were talking about, man, you have people, you know, they're well read, but they're, you know, they're well read nobodies that aren't going to do anything with it. You know, like on my computer, sure, man, I have like 30 or 40 freaking PDFs, you know, and do I read them all at one time? No. I mean, I take my time, I go through them and stuff like that. But the only reason I have them is for resources, so that if I have questions or if I have a thought, I have a resource to go pull from to go, okay, reading through it. Okay, here's the answer to that, you know, and then explore it a little bit on my own to make sure that it's actually precise and that it works with what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm. If it aligns with what you're doing, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the internet being a very neutral thing, and that people have always been people, non-neutral. We're all focused in on whatever it is that we're focused in on, you know, whether witchcraft, whether pagan, whether sorcerer, whether warlock, whether wizard, whether high priest, whether magician, you know, no matter what. And I think that, you know, when we turn it to a system to where it's got to be this or this or this or this, that's where the abuse plays in. That's where it becomes imbalanced. And you know, earlier I'm joking about, you know, doing the sign of silence and logging out, you know, as a form of banishing. But sometimes I swear some of the stuff you hear and see out of people, you're just like skip or click or, you know, something.
I think one of the things that we brought up that was interesting is we're talking about these books, the people who read all the books and they do nothing or whatever. You know, you and I were talking about this the other night when we were talking about the book that I'm writing. You know, it's something I've known for a long time, that when you put out your magic, when you're putting your magic, your system, your own personal style, your own beliefs, you're empowering them. The more people who adopt them or use them or are aware of them, it empowers what you're doing. And I think the internet makes that really work a lot better than it used to, obviously, because before you might share your ways with 2 or 3 people and that empowers it. But now you can have someone who they could technically be wrong. They might have everything wrong. The correspondence is wrong, everything wrong. But because the power of the belief of the community or the people who follow them makes it real and strong. And that's one of the reasons why I am writing a book. It's not just because I want to make money or have people read my ways or learn them or anything like that. It helps to empower what I do in a more objective sphere. And I think the internet really does that. Now, I want to, before I pass that idea as a question to everybody else, I want to remind people we're going to be answering questions in a minute. We have a couple already in the group chat. So if you have any questions about what we're talking about, the theme, we don't really have a theme tonight, but the theme so far has been the awakening of the infernal current in our society, especially on the internet. So if you have any questions or any questions for us about Dark Sorcery, about our practices, about anything about us, type them in the group chat, and Loco Ono is going to pass them on to us in a minute. I think after we answer this question, we'll start answering some of the questions people have been posting.
I want to say something real quick, and you can add it to it. I think that this new age and with the internet stuff, I literally think that it is empowering egregores way more than they ever got empowered before.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good point. I think bring that back up again when you get to that, because I think that kind of ties a little bit into what I just said is the question is do you think that the internet, so let me ask that of you, JB, do you think Alfredo, do you think that all this internet stuff is empowering ideas that maybe aren't traditional? Do you think that this is making things real that weren't before? Or how do you feel the internet, you know, a person like me who comes forward out of nowhere and starts doing what I do and gets recognition, everybody says, wow, that's this, and then other people and everybody's magic just seems to get more effective in that sense. Do you think that's a thing, or do you think that's just a coincidence?
I definitely think it's a thing. I mean, let's take, for instance, in your situation. I mean, if we were back in the day when you know the internet wasn't as prevalent, you really wouldn't have the tools that you have to get started. Mm-hmm. You'd have to, you know, maybe go around, find some mentors, check out libraries, different kind of bookstores. That takes time. Your knowledge will be limited, but then again, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. Once you make yourself open and willing to the spirits that we were, you know, discussing earlier, you'll see doors open that, yeah, you wouldn't have imagined, just that come out of nowhere that get open. But yes, it does. I think it, like I mentioned earlier about different systems of magic being invented, and we're going to see a lot more innovation in the community as a result.
And when you mentioned before my own situation when I was younger, you know, I did have like that cult thing going on, and it required that but it was small. It was like, you know, 10 people, 20 people at most. Now I have hundreds and thousands of people that occasionally read my stuff or watch my videos, or it's a much bigger audience. Like you said, now I have the tools to really reach out. But something is also lost in the translation because it's not a one-on-one experience. I can't use my empathy and my intuition and learn the person I'm working with and find out what is required to make them listen to me or do what I want. So in other words, not that I'm doing that really anymore. I've matured. I don't work that way anymore. But back in the day, I could read somebody and manipulate them. Now it's, just watch my content. Hopefully you like it. And I have to, I kind of lose something in translation. So in a sense, I don't expect as much in a sense, but when it was one-on-one, it was, but that's hard to do nowadays anyway. Maybe that's another thing we should talk about in a minute, is how the internet's made some of this stuff not work as well, because now that interpersonal side of us has been shifted to a virtual one. We're no longer working with each other directly. Like I can't be like, Alfredo, come over to my house. Waylon, come over to my house. We're gonna do a ritual to Vine or something. We don't have that anymore. Now it's like we have to use this medium, which does work. I want people who might be new to this, watching this, know that if we work a spell through the camera, the spirit isn't confined to just my house or your house. We can both invoke the same energies, and it can still have a pretty profound effect, even from a distance. I mean, that's not new. I think in traditional magic that was done. You have these societies, these secret groups that would work, a spell together over vast distances, or just look at religion, how that works. But let's pass the question to JB, I guess, if Alfredo's done. Do you think that the internet or these various mediums empowers people's working so that their style of magic becomes real, even if it wasn't before, that kind of thing?
Can you hear me?
You're a little muted. You may have to turn up your volume. No, you're still very quiet.
I was trying to play with my microphone because this seat creaks. I'm trying not to do this little screen flashing back and forth.
I just raised you a little bit, so that should help.
Okay. Does the internet help? Most certainly. I've been thinking about this from the perspective of doing it inside the internet for so long. It's the only perspective I have. I was doing this in AOL chat rooms. I was doing this in Yahoo groups. So it's the only perspective I've ever had.
Right. So what I was saying was, like, do you see that when people express their magic online, it makes it more valid and real? Do you think it empowers it strongly? Does it, like I said, could you take something that you made up and make it effective just because you're putting it out in the public in that way?
Well, it's been proven that you can entirely make something up. There were metaphysical research groups that literally invented like an 18th century Prussian prince, invented the name, invented the backstory, et cetera, and had group number one focus on that person as if that person actually existed.
Mm-hmm.
So you take group one, okay, thank you for your time, go home. You bring in group two, who knows no one in group one, and you ask them to summon that person, and they can give back the same details. If you can say, what color are your hair? What color are your eyes? What was your favorite food? It's like you write on the wall of the universe, mm-hmm. and you can read it back, or it'll actually talk to you in that sense. So, yeah, it was pseudo-scientific proof that an egregore could exist by having two groups, one create and one read. Yeah.
I remember you brought that up to me in private once, that same story. It is interesting. And the Magicology just mentioned that's a kind of egregore, thought form created, like you said, out of like the internet. Like you could treat it that way. Also with just the internet in general, if you're putting out your magic. Ikela, what do you think about that question? Do you think that, the internet validates magic or lets you create entirely new systems of magic just based on your will and intent and sharing it?
So I'm going to answer that question just a slightly different than you're verbalizing it. For me personally, and I'm open-minded to new ideas, I'm always changing and coming up with new things. But for me, I don't really like to let too many people know what I'm doing, just because I'm in my own belief, I feel like if someone gets a negative thought about a potential spell that I'm doing, it could also remove power. Or you might have someone who thinks, oh yeah, that's powerful, it's going to work. So it really depends on the audience that's looking at it. So for me personally, I don't like to share those a lot. But I can understand. Well, for me, I got to a point, I write and create all my own magic. I mean, I just get creative. I just sit there and my boss and I write it out, and I'm old school. I don't like nothing on the computer. I don't trust the computer. Let it fail me now. So I write everything old school. I got my boss. Oh yeah, if you're going to send me a bill, you better send it through my mail, because I don't check my email enough, you know, and I might lose that and get my electricity shut off. I don't trust it. So, so yeah, I create my own stuff. I just added some knot magic into one of my last spells, and so it's like just different ways of adding to different elements of what I'm creating. And I try not to get too caught up into the tools. I like to keep it real simple because my brain gets really cluttered easy. Like you were saying earlier in our little group chat, you know, you got to do this, got to do that, and you just kind of get sidetracked and all that type of thing. So I got to keep it real focused on what I'm doing so I can get stuff done.
I think I said during our chat, I said, when I die, I'm going to become the demon of what was it, procrastination. And anyone who comes to me, I'm going to appear, but I'm not going to appear right away. I'm going to appear 2 or 3 days later in a bathrobe, like a cold cup of coffee. Like, what the hell do you want? All right. I think we're up to Waylon. Waylon, what do you sort of answered that already, but what you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah,
what do you think about?
Go with JB with a pseudoscientific phrase. So the way I kind of look at it is quoting Marilyn Manson, you know, the garden and the gardener. And in my own words, you know, all of creation, seen and unseen, is a tapestry. And we are sewing threads into it. We're painting whatever analogy you wish to use for it. Imagine it like this right here. Imagine that there are no gods. Imagine that there are no people. Imagine it is you and you are nothing. And everything is nothing. And one day you decide, I want to make something. And then you start visualizing. While you're visualizing, you're creating its form. And then when you start speaking to it as if it is alive, you give it life. You're breathing your life into it. This is a form of God magic, if you will. This creation. You can do the same thing with destruction. It ties in with what Ikela is talking about, with people that take power away from your workings, or people that add to your workings. We're this give take. We're the ebb and flow of the oceans, if you will. Mm-hmm. All of creation. We sit here physically and we look upon either the screen or we just wherever our eyes land upon, and we think we fucking see what we think we're fucking seeing, and we're not. That is something that has been cast there, something that has been made by something or someone else. And what happens is, to change reality as a practitioner, as a magician, as a whatever the word is, like I said, once again, just imagine, you know, nothing, and that you're just creating it from it. You know, we've had how many billions of years for us to get to this stage right now. Imagine where in that amount of time we're going to be in the future. You know, no longer needing a body is the way you see a body. You know, things are going to shift, they're going to change, they're going to evolve, they're going to become. You know, magic stays the same. The power of creation and destruction remain absolute. What we call magic is, I don't know, it's no different than air that you're breathing, outside of the fact that instead of needing plants and trees to create oxygen, guess what? Magic, that power, that force, it just is what it is. And we're constantly tapping into it. We use systems derived from ancient people. We use these new ideas that we're coming up with. We're communicating with egregores, with spirits, with deity. We're constantly conversating with other beings constantly. Sometimes we physically hear, sometimes we sense, and then sometimes we're unaware that their influence is right there. And what we're calling influence is the back and forth, and that is the best way I can put it.
I think what you said was very important. You're basically saying, if I'm reading you right, is that magic is, and then what we overlay on top as the system to make it work not that it doesn't matter, but that's not the magic. The symbols aren't the magic. The magic is the creation and what we're doing with it. And therefore it is moldable, mutable, and transmutable in so many different ways that it's unfair to get dogmatized, I guess, into one system or another.
Yeah, you got to kind of, it's funny. All dogma was ever the distance dogma was supposed to have taken us was to get us up off our ass and moving and doing, and instead we became imprisoned and encased in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like our technology. I mean, if we're talking about technology in the infernal current, our technology threatens to encase us more and more every day, and that goes back to what I was saying before. When we were young, we'd go out and play ball, or we would go to each other's house and do spells or whatever. Now it's like we're lucky to get somebody, on Discord or something to talk to us. It is becoming like a wall. I'd like to go to the questions now. We had a bunch of questions so far, and hopefully Loco's been keeping track of that. And we'll ask the questions. We'll start with what we'll do is we'll pass the questions around that are relevant to everybody. If it's a specific question, to a specific person, they'll answer it. So we'll start with the first question when Loco's ready to read it off to us, and we'll pass that question around to each of us one by one.
The first question I have is from Dead Metalhead. He posed the question, so can someone have such destructive plot against you through magic? And that was for, I believe, everybody.
Okay. So I'm not quite sure what the intent of the question is. I guess it would be, can someone, I guess, have a strong enough desire to harm you that it will work through magic? Maybe that's what he's trying to get at. I'm not sure if English is his preference there. I mean, I'm going to pass that off, but I would think that anybody who has a strong enough intent, they don't have to do any magic at all. You have a strong enough intent, it's going to happen as part of the natural course of creation and life and magic in general. But let's pass that question around. I guess I hope I'm understanding it correctly, and we'll start with Alfredo. What do you think of that question, or how would you answer that if you can formulate one?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has enough hate towards you, like take for instance someone who's even not a magician, if they're constantly focusing on you and imagining bad things happening to you because they hate you so much, or they're jealous, or whatever the reason is, and they're constantly just channeling, anger, of course that can have an effect, and they could be practicing magic whether they know it or not. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, there are ways you can channel that that hatred and throw it all out at a lump sum, at a lump sum at somebody, if you know how to channel things correctly. But yeah, I definitely think that if somebody has enough hate for you that they can actually end up throwing that hatred or having it affect you in some way or another, whether they're a magician or not.
Okay. Ikela, same question. Do you agree with Alfredo? Do you have a different perspective on it?
No, I absolutely agree with him. But yeah, you can harm somebody if you want to throw that intent out there. But like he was also saying, you don't have to be a magician. You can also do that just with your own intent and emotions, not being self-aware of it. That's why I always tell my kids, be careful what you say. I don't like them to get so upset and they say these negative comments, and I'm always trying to redirect them. Don't say that. Your words have power. And so I'm really trying to teach them that, and sometimes I have to redirect my own thoughts or my own intentions, because I know sometimes I'll get my own ass jacked up from, my thoughts and shit. So yeah, I mean, you can even do it to yourself.
Mm. I often get caught in that because I'm not afraid to wish harm on anyone. My wife always says, "Don't do that. You're wishing harm on them." I go, "You don't understand how this works. It's fine." I don't believe in karma at all, so it's fine. JB, what do you? And I'm the Buddhist guy. JB, what do you think of the question of assuming we understood the question correctly, can you hate on someone enough that they don't have to be a sorcerer, they can just make something happen?
Well, are you able to hear me?
I hear you good. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Basically, people who are trying to learn magic, read and practice and practice and practice. I believe that someone can actually be a natural. That they can, in the context of the question, they could hate someone so much that they then visualize the the way they're destroyed. And that visualization that all of us work towards and read, and what we read says eventually get to that visualization and believe that visualization and see it as convincing as if it happened. But there's no difference between your dream and the real world that happens. I really believe that a person can be a natural, see what they desire for someone else, make that so pure, it happens, and they never had to do anything called magic. They've done magic. They've done scary atomic bomb level magic, but they never had to read it or call it magic. It simply happens. I believe there are people who can do that.
I think that also goes back to, there's a, I don't remember the guy's name, but there's like the quantum universe or something like that, where he thinks that his whole system is to believe and visualize and be the person that you want to be. So in other words, if you want to be a millionaire, act like a millionaire and really believe you're a millionaire, and in some point you will quantum jump, I think is what it's called.
The secret, yeah. The secret and other things, yeah.
So I think it could be related to that. And it, that does seem to be a very fundamental element. Magic seems to be doing that on purpose with a little bit more sophistication and a little bit more reliability. So I think we covered everybody except for Waylon. Waylon, what's your take on hating someone strongly enough to hurt them with magic, I guess was the question.
Well, personally, I've seen people who just right out the gate, man, they can manifest some shit like nobody's business. But as soon as you think that that's potential and that it needs to be, nurtured and trained, the next thing you know, they can't do it that way, because it's like everybody has their own internal balance. And when you start adding book knowledge and, you've got to do it this way, and you've got to train your will, and you've got to train this, and you've got to train that, they can do this to a certain degree. But then after a while, it comes in a confrontation with their own, mind, and they can't control it. They can't stop it. But yeah, absolutely. Even by what I just said, I mean, I've seen it happen. It's pretty amazing shit.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Loco, when you're ready, please recite it for us in your beautiful voice.
Smile Plays has a question about, he's looking for advice on starting up a magic channel on YouTube.
I'll let you know when we figure it out ourselves. just do what you do. Just do what you do. Just make videos about whatever and share them. They don't have to be good. They don't have to be bad. I've been playing with YouTube for a couple of years, and I deleted everything. I rebranded what I used to put up. It was all knife reviews and gun stuff and all my manly macho stuff that I'm into. And I got some political stuff. I would make fun of certain groups of people for trolling and stuff like that. And a couple of videos got like thousands and thousands of views, but I couldn't get it consistent. And then I said, you know what, I'm going about this wrong. Just do something you enjoy. Stop trying to hunt views, and just try to have fun and just put your content out there. I mean, I guess, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you guys have better advice than that?
Well, we just barely got on YouTube, so I can't answer that question.
Well, you're very good at promoting Dark Sorcery on Facebook, so in a way, you know more than all of us. But you've also been banging away at this for 2 or 3 years, so you're kind of like the result of just I think perseverance is probably the best quality.
Yeah, it is perseverance. I mean, it was just constantly. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't promote or tell someone about it or do anything to get the word. I always try to get the word out there. Now, keep in mind that I've only been on social media for 2.5 years, which is around the time I started Dark Sorcery. I didn't know how to use different tools and promotion. What drove me was drive. I had things that I felt that needed to be heard, and I wanted to get my opinions out there, and I wanted to. I envisioned what I see now the group is, but yeah, it's just pure adrenaline and drive that got me. I mean, if now that we're on YouTube, it's exciting because I really don't know how to use YouTube, but I guess you guys are going ahead and run that. But yeah, to answer your question,
we're going to drag you through it, Alfredo. We're going to get you so that you're going to be posting more than everybody. And But all right, so now that I guess we didn't give a magical answer yet. I'm not sure, I think a magical answer would be obvious. You do whatever magical working you would do for success in whatever business. King Paimon maybe would be a good choice to work through, and those kind of spirits that are good for that. But I guess we're talking about like mundane solutions. JB, what do you have? Do you have any other input on that, magical or mundane, to improve or create a YouTube channel for occult and dark sorcery, etc.? Oh, did we lose him, or is he still there? He may have had.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we lost him. I think Ikela we lost too for a minute. They'll probably come back. If not, they'll message us. So we'll just go right to Waylon then. Waylon, what's your take on that question? Because you've got the most successful. Maybe I have more views, but I mean, more subscribers on my channel. But you've been at this a lot longer and doing a lot more. Like a lot of my subscribers are from my old stuff, so maybe you're the best one to answer this.
I don't know. I do recordings every day, just about. So I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with sticking with it. You've got to honestly work. Saying I got as a sorcerer's work is never done. It never is. You breathe, eat, live, drink, shit this stuff. It's just all there is to it. Just, I don't know so much about the whole, you got to have confidence in yourself and you got to have this and you got to have that. I think more than all that, I think what you've got to have is a hunger. And I don't mean a physical hunger.
Right. I think it's also authenticity is a big deal. It came to, I keep forgetting to mention that, is if you're fake, like I've seen people fake stuff on their YouTube channels for this stuff, but they're an active and actual practitioner of this. And nothing, unless the spirit told you to do that, which is very rare, that offends the shit out of them. When someone does something and they're blowing the smoke and trying to act like it was the demon blowing it and all sorts of stuff, that pisses them off because you're taking away, like you're creating a false image of who they are.
Well, what Ikela was talking about with our spell work, you have a negative audience and it takes away power from it. You have a positive one and it adds power to it. And spirits are no different than us. They just don't have a physical body to walk around in unless we give them place within us. So yeah, I imagine they do get pissed. I would too.
Right. Magicology gave us some advice. He's been running a channel for a long time. He says, stick with it, make it a regular schedule of videos, having one every day or whatever. Make sure you pick the right days to put it up, the right times, because there's better, just keep plugging away. It's kind of like what we've been saying. JB, you were gone. I think you dropped, but you're back now. We're still on that same question of, do you have any advice for anyone starting a YouTube channel, magically or mundane? What would be your advice? I know that's not your forte, but what would be your advice if you had any?
Well, first of all, I don't have a YouTube channel, so a little hard to do that. What I've heard so far about just having consistency, I think having something, at least bullet points, scripted out is important, because the quickest way to lose people is go, and do everything you're told not to do in speech class. Right. So, maybe take a college speech class and then go out and do public speaking. And that is two things. Number one, it makes you have to deal with your fears. It gives quick feedback on things you do need to work.
You still there? He froze. People are dropping like flies. Well, I guess we can move to the next question when he comes back. Oh, there he is. He came back a little bit.
Did you lose all that?
We lost about maybe 15, 20 seconds.
Okay, I'll start again. Pretty much the big thing is learn how to speak publicly first. So a good high school or college speech class will help. The things they teach you about knowing what you're going to say, having your sources ready, already having imagined the classic questions and your responses, and how to stay on keel and stay polite when someone tries to rattle you. And people try to rattle you because they're just jerks out there. Mm-hmm. That's important. Then it's just experience. If you're worried about being seen on YouTube, you could join something like Toastmasters, where they teach business speakers how to go out and speak. So you do that until you're comfortable with that. Then maybe you jump to YouTube.
I would say improv classes too would probably be helpful if you can take that route. Being able to just talk on your feet basically and not have to have. I like bullet points. I don't like having things too scripted. I don't use anything anymore, but I get what you're saying because bullet points really help. All right, I think we'll move on to the next question.
Okay. The next question is directed at DH. Magicology posed a question, what's your sigil? I believe this is in reference to when you were talking about being the demon of procrastination.
That might be. I don't know yet. I'll leave it in my grimoire, and whoever finds that first will get the answer. If you're talking about the symbol behind me, that's going to be in my book. That's a major focal point for everything I do. Waylon and I had a nice talk about this the other night privately. I think as I get closer to doing my book, let me preface something with my book, and I think a lot of people would agree with this who write books about this. Nothing I'm putting in that book costs anything. In other words, if you buy my book, you're paying for the time and energy I put into making it into a book form. I don't intend on keeping anything secret per se, and if it is secret, it won't be in the book anyway. So at some point as I get closer to the book, I'll be releasing pieces of it as in video form for those probably after I release it. I mean, I still want to make a few dollars off of it, but I want to make sure it's out there at some point. So there'll be a little bit more about this and some other things that I work with. But I really think that's important in what I do is, a lot of this stuff comes from my experience and my whatever. So a lot of it's also from spirits, and they want me to put things out there that they want me to put out. And it's part of my path work, and it's part of my pacting with them to include things in the book that they're requesting, either through when I work with them actively or just while I'm writing. I can tell when it's an idea I've had or when I get an idea like I don't know what it's all about at all, and I have to research it and make sure I do it right. So when you're doing this kind of stuff, it comes to you naturally for me. So that's kind of what this is. But yeah, if I was going to be evoked after I'm dead, it would probably, I don't know, what would it be? I guess it would be, I don't know, probably just, I don't know, being nice to me. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But
an obsidian sphere and a 1d20.
Right? Yeah, that's a good one. Obsidian sphere and a 1d20.
Oh yeah, I want to bring something up. You said you didn't know if I play D&D. Damn it, I'm a programmer. Of course I. Of
course you play D&D. You probably DM all the time too.
How do you evoke me after I pass away? You go to the junkyard, you get a Commodore 64. It doesn't have to be plugged in. You just take it up dead, unplugged in Commodore 64, and type whatever you want to me, and I'll get it.
I love that.
A Wang mini port and modem to go with it.
Right? Just not even
1,200 baht. Only 1,200 baht.
Maybe stick an incense stick in the Ethernet port and light it up and just start tapping away. I love that. That is freaking genius. Let's pass that question on to everybody since we weren't sure whether he meant for this thing or. Because I would love to make a whole video about this, but I don't think it's good for a live chat. It'll take up too much. But let's pose that question. If you were, to be evoked after your death, JB just answered it, and we got mine. And I don't know if Waylon was talking for himself, the D20 so let's do Alfredo. What would we need to call upon you to conjure you, and what form would you appear? You already know what form I would appear. So let's see. Let's go back to JB for 1 second. What form would you take when you were evoked? If someone did that with the Commodore and the, how would you appear? Just like yourself, or would there be something funny about it?
Just to be a smartass. Just to be a smartass. They would do it, and all of a sudden they see a Geek Squad van drive by. It's him.
A phantom really Geek Squad.
I like that. It's him. It's really him.
Would it be like Santa Claus? Would it be pulled by a bunch of geeks or something? How would it be?
Oh no, just any Geek Squad van. Yeah,
just arrive in your living room like a phantom train.
Yes.
Alfredo, that whole question goes to you now. How would you?
What would it take to evoke me after I died?
Yeah, what would you simple? Like, what would be your sign, your symbol, your and how would you appear?
I don't know. Someone could just get a big bag of weed and just throw it on the floor. There's an inverted pentagram. roll it up, smoke it, and I'll just be like coming out of the smoke in the form of the alchemical symbol of sulfur or something, and just chill with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
And just chill out.
Yeah.
Your eyes like half open, like, yo, what's up?
Exactly.
Y'all do whatever you want, man. It's just gonna take me a little while. First, I gotta chill for
The
it.
word of calling. I
The
got
what?
you, ganja. The word of calling for Alfredo would be, I got you, ganja.
There you go. There you go.
Waylon, my brother, my friend, what would be the magical way to invoke you, and what would you appear as?
Oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Probably just trace and visualize my key in the air before you. Make damn sure you have a cup of coffee, and it better be Folgers Black Silk. I'm a picky bitch. I'm like Papa Legba. I like my shit the way I like it. Do it right. Take your cigarette and just go forth. Ahrimanahsul, I summon thee. Hey, I see you got my coffee. Hang on here for a second.
And you just appear as yourself, just looking for coffee?
No, actually, no. That's kind of funny in my head, but no. The few times that I've been told about the way I appear, or the way I truly appear, when I'm just not focusing on anything particular. Very wavy, like of tentacles, like I'm made of tentacles, but not really. So, it might be kind of weird to be like, how's he gonna drink this coffee? Like, don't you worry about that. You set that there and don't you touch it.
One of the tentacles has a mouth on it. Just goes.
Yeah, it's like this is how we pee.
Now, I mean, if we're going to try to sound cool about it, I don't want to be the guy in the bathrobe. Well, wait, I'm bringing a cup of coffee with me, even though I don't drink it. So I'll bring the cup. I'll look all disheveled and tired, like, because I'm the spirit of, procrastination. So that would actually be good to summon you. Like, you'd get me to show up. I'd have the coffee like a few days later, like, what the heck? And then you'd just arrive and like, you'd want my coffee.
Yeah.
And so we could get the two of us almost like a dual summoning that way. It'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that would work actually.
I could summon us all at the same time using our objects.
Use this triangle and the circle of my key and just have like,
right, and have a cup of coffee ready.
We'll just call it a twofer.
A really old and very big bathrobe. I'm a big guy, so I'm going to need a big bathrobe, guys. Unless you want to see me naked, but let's not go there.
Selling tickets.
Did we have any other questions in this? I think we did. I think I saw a few more go by.
I have one more question right here from Lawrence. He says, what do you guys think of merging scientific explanations to magic and vice versa? For example, saying blood magic works because of electromagnetism.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm going to try not to talk too long. First of all, I have a pet peeve with people that don't know anything about science, like even a little bit, invoking things that they don't know about to explain it away. In other words, oh, it's using this kind of science, it's quantum this, it's this and that, and they don't know much about it and why it could be or why it wouldn't be. That's not to say that they're wrong when they say that. I don't mean it like that. I just mean that I would encourage people not to jump to any conclusions about why or how it works, and to simply continue working with it and finding out how it works for you, because magic always takes, in my experience, the path of least rational resistance. And what that means is it's not going to, and I don't want to give the whole story again about the hurricane. I've said this so many damn times, but it's not going to cause a miracle if it can do things through a mundane answer. This is one of the reasons why magic is so difficult to prove to a skeptic, besides the fact that it can be unrepeatable because your intention has to be correct. If your intention is to prove magic, then your intention isn't to do magic, if that makes sense. So if I'm saying to you, like if I'm in a room with a skeptic and he wants me to prove that magic is real, and he says, do what I tell you to do, and it will prove to me that magic is real. Well, my intention at that moment isn't to do what he wants me to do. It's to prove magic. And that ultimately could still succeed, but it won't succeed in the moment that I'm doing the situation. So my true intention is going to be disconnected from what I'm trying to do. But that's not really your question. Your question is also, how do these things work together? What mechanical and mundane answers are there for magic? I would say that there is, first of all, it's more of a philosophy. It's a question of, you have the subjective experience, and the objective rational world is within the subjective experience. So what that means is whatever you believe ultimately becomes true, at least for you. I think a lot of these people that you see walking around and they're walking an invisible dog on a leash because they're crazy, they may not be as crazy as you think. They're just existing in a different subjective universe than you are. And they're, working with your subjective universe. But I think that, really what it boils down to is taking a subjective thing and making it an objective reality for more than just yourself, if we're talking about objective manifestation, because there's a difference between something that you do magically for yourself, for your own experience, and something that you do magically for the universe. So, for example, astral projecting or having visions or divination, that's more of a subjective experience, and you don't have to prove it to anybody. It's synchronicity. So you have a dream about, a cup of coffee, and the next day Wayland appears in your living room, would be synchronistic, right? On the other hand, if you do a spell for having $1 million, which, whatever, you might not ever get it, okay, because you're trying to affect and infect the objective world, and there's a lot more resistance to it there. Now, how does it relate to science? I mean, we don't know enough about science to answer the question necessarily how things work in a scientific sense. We don't know exactly what anything is. We're getting closer all the time to a solution, but for years they thought string theory was right. Now they're not so sure, and they have all these different things that they're working with. I would say don't try to worry about which scientific principle it works within, because it works within all of them. It could be quantum, it could be multiple dimensions or multiple universes. One of the things that I use this symbol for back here, as a matter of fact, is part of how this works is during your working, you are visualizing the thing that you want. Let's see if I can do it right here where my fist is. You're almost like reaching into an alternate reality, and you're finding the universe that has what you want in it, and you're pulling through that energy and bringing it into your world, and then you're letting go and letting the world form around that. But that's just a fancy, mind game. It's not necessarily real. It's a fancy mind game to convince my subconscious to do the things that it needs to do to make my subjective experience work. So could it be quantum? Of course it could, because the quantum foam is a random fluctuation of energy. You have things appearing and disappearing out of this wavy quantum foam at all times, particles winking in and out of existence. And there's no way for scientists to know what's going on at that level everywhere in the universe, let alone in a small little space. So if you could say it's part of the quantum, foam that's rippling, and your intention is strong enough, you influence this quantum foam, it causes particles to pop in and out, and you can definitely get something that way. But I don't like to worry about it too much. I just want to make sure that I am rational about it. I don't ever want to be so into fringy science that I'm irrational. I don't want to get to the point where I think that anything is possible just because Schrodinger's cat and biophotonic energy and multiple dimensions and blah, 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 blah. I would rather just do what I do and not be worried about how to rationalize it too much, other than just for fun. For fun, it's fine. I hope that answers the question, and let Alfredo answer it next.
Yeah, I think that like DH was saying about everybody has their own subjective reality based on how they view everything. I mean, every day there's always new stuff in the news and everything about the fact that science and magic is merging because of this article or something they found because of here. But I really don't think it affects anybody unless they're paying attention to that genre of news or trying to stay up to date with it. Because I'm like I said, stuff like that gets discovered every day, but has it really affected our practices? Really, no. But I mean, if you have that drive, you can look into that and you can have that key to where you find something that affects your practice based on that scientific and magical understanding unified. It's like somebody who's looking for, you know, like say if you're fixing a car or something, you need a certain kind of wrench or whatever, you know, of course, you know, something, whatever you're looking for, you'll find it based if you're paying attention to it. But if not, it really doesn't make much of a difference to everybody else. But that's just my take on it in our current situation.
I would add one more thing too, is that also, let's not forget science is actually a manifestation of magic, as I understand it. As the spirits and I have been working together, part of my book talks about this, is that the origin of science is the desire of mankind to have control over the natural forces around it without having to do, you know, magical spiritual things. So everything, like mankind has wanted to fly since the dawn of time, and it took us all this time to figure out how to do it, but the spirits were guiding us, and the experiences were guiding us. We couldn't just evoke an airplane out of thin air. You need to have an airport, you need to have fuel, you need to have this and that. You can't just fly regularly, because, you know, like with telekinesis, just lifting off, you're defying the laws of nature. You need to have an immeasurable amount of energy to levitate yourself without destroying yourself. You know, all these things, if you're working in the mundane world, unless you are completely going into the realm of make-believe, science is going to resist you. And it's not science is resisting you, the natural laws are resisting you. Science is just a recognition of the natural laws. So in a sense, magic manifested science for us so that we could do these things on the regular. You know, maybe once upon a time someone could just lift off the ground and float away, but for everyone to be able to do that, you needed science. And I think science is a manifestation of magic. JB, go ahead with your answer.
Well, mine's just going to be a little bit stronger. And you and I talked one day, and I gave you an example. Do people ever live the horror film? I've lived the horror film.
Mm-hmm.
I told you about a time in my life that I had an aunt who had a lot of mental and attitude problems, and I was supposed to take and drive her to court. I tried driving by the development where she was at, just saying, fuck this, fuck her, fuck her, fuck her, fuck that bitch. And I was driving. And I'm driving in a 1980 AMC Eagle station wagon with studded snow tires. Imagine the performance of this car. It doesn't exist. Brakes are an afterthought. There's no power. I'm driving, and a voice, I won't name brand B, but it was brand B, so I know brand B exists, says, "You're turning now." And my car whips around, and actually, when we were talking, I pulled up the Google map of the turn I had to make. And that turn is physically impossible to make a top-end drift car, much less a 1980 AMC station wagon with studded snow tires.
Right.
And he just whipped me around like, yes, sir, and went. I've had that. I've been thrown into walls. So do I think people can fly? I didn't try to fly, but I was literally thrown 8 feet into a wall. And
I think that's a good point. I do agree.
People to throw them into walls.
I think that's a good point.
I've lived the horror movie.
Sorry, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's my answer. You know, do the things you see in Hollywood exist with enough concentration, focus, hate, and intent? Yes, I've lived them.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I just think that people's, you know, expectations of it being scientifically, you know, let's put it this way. I think that if we had a suitable skeptic there when you did that with the car, they probably would find some way that it was remotely possible, because we're not those guys. I just say maybe. I'm saying it's possible that they could. And I think that that's generally how it manifests. But I do think, like you're pointing out, there are miracles that do happen. I call them miracles because they're a step beyond just normal manifestation. They're literal, like you said, you've been thrown into walls and things. And that I've had happen too. I've had that throwing experience happen to me. Okay, so Waylon, what's your take on this connection of science and magic and explaining it with science? And what science would you say explains it, if any?
Quantum mechanics is as close as you're going to get. And the reason why is because each plane of existence has different rules that govern it, and the physical plane is the only plane that can be governed by the rules that govern it. And it's kind of like thinking outside the box. The only way to think outside the box is, well, first thing, you don't know what's outside the fucking box, but here's a clue of how you do it. you know what's inside the box, and that's how you know when you're outside of it, and in the area of thinking. Concerning concerning all that, you know, I think everybody's had experiences to differing degrees. Some more dramatic than others. I was seeing a girl one time, and her father didn't want her seeing me, and he decides in a Walmart parking lot he's going to run me over full force. Well, I don't run. It's not I walk if I'm going somewhere. That's just what I do. I stood there, and all of a sudden I heard a voice, "Pretty as you please, don't move." And all of a sudden I saw the car just stopped, and I mean, and this guy was gunning it. It picked the car straight up, turned it sideways, set it down, and cut it off. The look on that man's face. And after that, he wouldn't come within 10 feet of me. Because, I mean, I was looking at him the entire time because I'm looking at him and I'm just like, okay, you're going to run me over? And, you know, and just following suit with things like that. What causes that? What does that? Who the fuck knows? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a low-tech guy, you know. This is my fucking phone. I make phone calls on it. You know, I don't have every fucking app underneath the fucking sun. I don't give a shit about all that. Now, what would have been cool is if I did. It would have been nice to have recorded that because, you know, except for the 3 other people that were there, they were sitting there going, "Holy fuck, dude, what the hell?" You know, there were no witnesses outside of those. So it's just testimony. Well, when you get in realms like that, then you have to think, why do you fucking want proof? Why do you need fucking proof? Is it an ego thing? You know, that it doesn't involve your ego. Is it, you know, some low sensory thing that, you know, you just need validation? And that is the key right there. Why? Is it because you need validation? Or is it because, you know, for a matter of fact, whether anybody does or does not believe it does exist, it can happen, it will happen. It does happen. Just not always, you know, to where it can be recorded, you know, seen and everything else. As far as people, you know, saying, "Oh, well, I've got the perfect explanation for that." Sure, within a certain degree you will, but watch when science tries to explain some of the stuff. You'll notice that they're grabbing at straws to answer most of it because they can't. Some of it because the realm of psychometry, you know, outside of electronic devices that record, you know, the amount of energy output in the brain and everything else, you know. But that's all it is waves and dots and shit on a fucking machine monitor. That's not saying, okay, well, what's happening with that energy? They've got no, you know, they've got no explanation. And like I said, quantum mechanics is about as close as you're going to get. And even that's just to help you break outside the mold. That's not necessarily, you know, going to give you justifiable, viable results and answers and explanations for that. We may never get the fucking answers. You have to ask yourself, why do I need this? What is the validation behind it? And
I think that's great because that actually goes back to what I was saying too about if the skeptic trying to ask you to prove it, your intention is going to be off. It's no longer going to be an intention to do magic. It's going to be to make the skeptic happy. So I do think that's what you said is very resonant with me in a lot of ways. I think we should do a live stream or maybe just the 2 of us or something and really dig into that subject a little bit more because we did mention and talk about biophotonic energy in that one thing, which is very related to quantum mechanics. You have quantum entanglement at work in that because if it is biophotonic energy where your individual cells are emitting light and communicating with light to one another, that means any light inside and around you is also potentially usable. So in other words, we had even tied it into the planets when we were talking about this the last time, where the planetary energy, the light that comes from those planets, that's possibly why it's so important to be in view of the light when you're really trying to get a strong manifestation or evocation or something like that, you know, of the spirit. Like Lucifer, you want to have Venus in the sky if possible so that you can use that light to interact with you better. So there's a lot of, that's why I say, like, don't waste too much time trying to prove it or explain it with science, but don't push it under the rug too much. I think we got time for one or two more questions. We're about an hour and a half in. I don't want to go past 2 hours. So do we have any more questions, Loco?
There is one more right now from Ethereal Wyvern asking, is it possible to be too late to the party in terms of age and magic?
You know, I'm going to break with tradition. I'm going to go back in reverse order. I'm going to let Waylon go first because we talked about this the other day a little bit. It came up in our private conversation about our ages and how things affected us differently. So I'm going to let Waylon go first. We're going to work in reverse order. Waylon, what's your opinion on that question? Is it possible to be too late to the party in terms of learning and starting magic, or does it even matter?
It's too late when you're dead. Let's put it that way. It's too late when you're dead because then there's nothing you can do about that while being here. A Life of Levi Dell, in one of his books back when I was 18, 19 years old, I read where he had stated that, you know, somebody shouldn't come to magic until they're in their 40s. And I've had this conversation with many, many people over the years that, you know, back then I was a cocky little shit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not waiting until I'm 40 to do something. Fuck that. But the funny thing is, and Thorne and I were talking the other night about it, that, you know, come 39, it was like everything made sense. You know, all these 20-something years of studying and practicing, it was like all of a sudden I got put back in kindergarten and I started understanding it better than I did the whole time I've been doing it. So no, I don't think there is such a thing as too late to the party. Not, you know, if you find that you're 55 years old, then all of a sudden you're just like, you know, oh, I'm really into Tiamat, I'm really into this, or, you know, I want to get into this, or just whatever the thing is. Okay, you were called to it. You know, no matter what your age is, be thankful that at some point in your life, that door of your psyche opened, and you know, and that spirit, entity, deity, force, power, whatever, was able to communicate with you. You know, embrace the shit out of it. Run at it like you were 15 and just got your first satanic Bible. And that's just an example. It's just a joke, not serious. But, you know, imagine you're young and you just found something new. Well, hell, even in old age, you can still run at it like you're young and just, you know, something new. Just embrace the fucking moment, embrace the experience, and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's. We're probably all going to resonate with that somewhat. JB, being the eldest of the group at the moment, we're working on that. We're trying to catch up to you. What's your feeling on age starting in magic? Does it matter? Would it improve things? Would it hurt things? Let us have it, brother.
I want to pull something out of left field here. One of the best movies on magic, and no one's going to guess this until I give you the exact scene, is Star Trek Insurrection. Okay? Classic thing of Star Trek Insurrection is Enterprise shows up. There's this one planet that wants to kill this other planet. And the younger planet are people who seemingly live forever. And they don't outright say we have magic, but they have magic. Up to the point of being able to make rocks float in space and, you know, the birds fly and, you know, in patterns or whatever they think is artistically beautiful. And so you have Jean-Luc Picard, who's the ultimate, I'm a diplomat and I believe in logic and, you know, engage number one. and he falls in love with a woman on this planet. And they end up trapped in a cave and she's about to die. And Jean-Luc Picard, the most logical, I am Mr. fucking Federation, pulls a spell out of his ass to keep the rocks from killing her. So, no, you're never too old.
No, never too old. I like that analogy. That's a good one. Do you think it can make it easier to start younger, or do you think that starting at any age is fine?
I think that the older you start, the first thing you have to realize is that you have to unlearn what you've learned, because what you have learned up to that point are pre-programmed lies to keep you away from magic. Even if you're religious, even if you're a person of religious conviction, even they still tell you lies to keep you from tapping into the full well of strength and power of that religion. So
that's great.
The fantasy is you have metaphysical parents who teach metaphysical children They never tell them those lies. They never say, yeah, cut it with the imaginary friend crap. Eat your Cheerios. Those children will grow up to be very strong. I used to think that. But I've met 3 pagan shop owners, very sincere witches, who had this opportunity. Their kids could have been raised like that. They weren't, and there's no difference.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't seize that opportunity.
And Alfredo, what do you think? Do you think that age matters? Do you think you can start at any age? Do you think that starting later will limit your potential? Or do you think it's, like JB's saying, do you think it almost doesn't matter? What do you think?
I think that age doesn't matter at all. In fact, I think that it's possible to come along in a later age, and your zeal and passion for it, once you begin to understand what it is and that it's your purpose, that your zeal will be so strong, could be so strong that you could surpass all these younger people that have come before you, and just your mind and your spirit can be like a sponge absorbing all kinds of stuff and even being innovative. I mean, once your spirit and being is tapped into what your passion really is, and once you really have an understanding of this world is energy, and there's energy around, and it's possible to manipulate and put things in our favor, or to go to a certain way, that your passion can bring you a long way. So it doesn't matter at all.
You know, it reminds me of a couple things in Zen and some other things like that. You know, let me see if I can round the bases a little bit. In Zen and Eastern traditions, you know, a lot of people in the West, we look at that and we say, wow, how mystical and amazing. And people who are into that, they devote a lot of time to studying it, and they're really into it. And they can achieve some interesting things because of that interest. But to a person living in China who's born and raised with it, they don't care. It's just like going to church for them. It's just another thing they have to do. And if they want to inherit their family's, you know, holdings, sometimes they have to, and this kind of stuff. So it's interesting to note that when you're young and these things are drilled into your head, no matter what it is, whether it's Christianity, paganism, occultism, whatever it is, it's rote. You know, it's rotish. You don't care the way you do when you choose it for yourself, you know, later in life. But I'm also reminded that of a couple other things. One, how much you know about the occult almost doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of knowledge. Of all of us here, I probably have the lowest or the second lowest amount of actual knowledge about occult practices from other cultures and things like that. In other words, I haven't studied Hermetics. I haven't studied, you know, Crowley. I haven't studied any of this stuff. This is intuitive. It comes from spirits. It comes from my practice. Yet I get results and I get things that work, and I've been validated. Waylon's been working with me and stuff like that. These things are validated just from experience. And literally, for me, it's an act of projecting my intention and will into the world. Everything I'm doing right now with this YouTube thing, with Dark Sorcery, with everything, I'm not in my ritual chamber casting spells all day. I am literally just going, this is how it's going to be, because I'm aligned with my intention right now. And it's what I call living a kind of, you're living not a gifted or a blessed, but a special experience where it's no longer about like doing it on purpose. You're living a charmed life, as I call it. You live a charmed life where when you're aligned with your truest intention, you're not fighting what your truest intention is anymore. You're not dwelling in your ego so much, where your ego says, I want food, sex, this, that, blah, 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 blah. You are now aligned with the real reason you want those things. Then those things come to you. It's a little bit easier. A lot of times in magic, what the initiate wants is food, sex, power, money, blah, 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 blah. What they really want is to be free of those things. And their ego's way of being free of it is to try to amass as much of it as they can so they get sick of it or they don't need it anymore, which is a valid approach. This is why Left-Hand Path is very filled with people who want these lower base things, and this is what they're working for. But ultimately, your truest intention is to have authority. It's to have, and not just authority, but a kind of loose authority where you don't have to control every little thing. You just want your whims to be like satisfied automatically. And to answer magicology, when I'm saying ego, I mean ego in the Zen sense. I know that psychologically is id, the ego, the superego, and all that stuff. But in Zen, they usually refer to it as like the ego, the personality, the person that's there. So I guess it would be the id. But the point is we're not using our true nature when we're doing these lower things necessarily. So how much you know about the practice of magic is not what does it for you. So you can start at any age. The trick is to actually forget, like JB said, anything that interferes with that. So when you are talking about working magic, what's the first thing you have to do? We were talking about already is rationalizing it with science or whatever. You have to come up with a rationalization for why it could work. That's the first step, is to rationalize how is this possible, so that you don't step on your own toes when you're trying to do it. So sometimes having a lot of knowledge can help, but sometimes it can interfere with it. But I'm also reminded of something that was said, talking about people like talking to their imaginary friends and things like that. Your imaginary friends when you're a child, a lot of what I'm doing right now, like I've been thinking about to myself in a funny way. I have like this pen in here or this other thing, and I'm imbuing them with energies and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, what's the difference between this and playing with action figures, except that I'm getting manifestations? In a lot of ways, what we do as children is a fundamental element of what magic ends up being in practice. We invoke the spirit of our superhero that we like, and I'm Superman, ba ba da ba. I mean, that's not that far off from invoking, Baal or something like that. It's not that far off from it. And the same thing applies to your magical tools, to anything else you're doing. You have to have a childlike ability to play Let's Pretend to a level where it becomes real. A lot of times when you're doing magic, being able to role play is very important. You can role play things into reality. You can make it real by role playing it enough. It starts off where you go, oh, I'm just making this up. And then, the more into character you're getting, the more you invoke the sorcerer that you truly are into your actual life, it stops being a game. It starts to become real, just like that person's idea of quantum jumping, where you can jump between realities. You can make it real by living it and by not holding back and saying, oh, I didn't read this book yet. I don't know yet. I don't know enough. Or I'm too old. I can't start because it takes 20 years to learn this. That's the old, way of, you need to be initiated and all this other bullshit. Your power comes from you, not from someone giving it to you. Your power comes from within, and with the spirit world, your interaction with that. It doesn't come from some old master saying you're allowed to do it now. With the exception of, you do need to understand the symbols, and the symbols you have to create for yourself, but the symbols also, it's an interplay of objective symbols and personal symbols. Only so much of it can be purely subjective. You do need the objective component. You do need to accept that, like, this is the seal for King Paimon. Where did that come from? That didn't come necessarily from me. That came from someone 200, 300, 400 years ago. So I'm accepting it as a symbol of that spirit that allows me to connect to that spirit. But King Paimon can also say, here, use this instead. Or you don't need that. Just call my name, sing my end. So getting back on point is, your age doesn't matter, because it's going to come from you anyway. You just have to remove the distractions. You have to think of it like trying to paint a sunset on a sheet of glass that's facing a sunset. The sunset's already there. Instead of trying to paint the sunset, just wipe the paint away and let the sunset shine through. Get rid of your the majority of your presumptions, and just do it. If you're not sure, pick up a book, and with full intent and full willingness for it to be real, but still a little skeptical. You still want to have it shown to you. Do the thing out of the book and expect the unexpected. That's all I can say. So, I think that's roughly where we're going to leave off. Does anybody have anything else they want to add or say or bring up?
Nope. I think we're good.
I just want to thank everybody for being here and making it a live stream.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is great that we've tonight we're able to get the whole team in its entirety and be able to exchange ideas and have some camaraderie and just hang, you know, just show people that, hey, you know, we have a like mind of helping the community and teaching and doing what we do, and we're all good with each other. We're a family.
And we're just trying to have fun and share what we like and grow what we're doing to include you guys. I think we were talking about having some of the people in Dark Sorcery occasionally come on as guests too. Just you know, invite people occasionally just to join us and have chats. And you know, we're not always going to be all together. Sometimes we're going to have like one or two of us. You know, and Waylon and I are the most active on YouTube. But we also, you know, we also have our own practices and stuff that we do. So. I think, you know, what I'd like to do is maybe we'll shift days when we do these things around. We'll try to find the best day for our viewers and us besides just Saturday. I think Saturday kind of limits some of the attendance a little bit. But I also think the time might be a little bit better if we pushed it to 9 o'clock. So like 9 to 10 or 9 to 11, we do the stream instead of 8 to 10. I think that's a little bit better for people because there's a lot of people on the West Coast who couldn't make it because they're just getting out of work or whatever. So
there are people on the West Coast, but there are also parents who want to put the kids to sleep.
Right. Like Ikela and some of them, they got to be able to do all that. So I think we'll try to shift it a little bit. Whatever, you know, Alfredo will decide a little bit. We'll both talk about it and figure it out.
Sure.
And we're still doing our videos. I got a video that's coming out on Monday. I'm actually have it scheduled for 2:30, and it's actually going to be a video about manifestations I've caught on film. Most of them have been on my channel or shown in Dark Sorcery before, but I'm going to be commenting on them and breaking them down a little bit and trying to, you know, like rewind, fast forward, show where things happen for those who might be interested to see what low-level manifestations can look like, what could be a questionable one, what's more likely to be like 100% confirmed. I think my Sam Hain video is probably the strongest of the ones I'm going to show, but that's going to be coming up on Monday. And I think we're all just going to try to put out a video every other day or so.
Yeah, in fact, I got a couple more videos I'm going to be throwing out soon, probably instructional videos like the last one. So be looking out for those.
And JB, of course, you're welcome as you're getting, you know, you're busy right now, so we don't expect a lot. But as soon as you're able to start putting out videos, you know, just if you need help getting that set up, you know, we'll help you. But I think you can just post it right to YouTube once you get it going. So
yeah, I can do that. I went ahead and use the admin permissions. So I've got that set up.
Okay, so we'll do that. Yeah. And then Waylon, you and I will be doing our live streams in our usual work, brother. I mean, I think you and I should maybe schedule one for Monday night if you're available. Maybe we'll think about doing one, just the two of us. What do you think?
Let me. I won't know till Monday whether or not Tuesday is free enough to be able to do that because we do that.
Whatever. Any day but Wednesday for me is good.
Well, yeah, let's set it for. We'll try for Monday night. So.
All right. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you for your comments and questions. We'll try to keep it. We'll try to get better at this all the time, more natural and a little bit more interesting. And I think we did a good job already, right, guys? I think we had fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Chicken grease.
Had a lot of fun.
All right. Waylon, close us out with your famous saying.
Till next time. Peace, blessings, and power.
Peace, blessings, and power. Guys, stick around after the broadcast. Those of you who are in it, I'm going to stop broadcasting now. Have a good one, everybody.